But there's a real vulnerability to it, and I think that's what scares a lot of people, you know. It's specifically because D&D, I think, has gotten kind of like a rap of being like nerdy or geeky, like you said before. And so, but I think it's nerdy slash geeky because these people like are like willing to be vulnerable and like in pursuit of fun, you know. And I feel like that's rare today. But what's also crazy is doing this movie, I've learned how diverse this demographic is. There are people who play D&D who are like in their 60s. There are people who play D&D who are 12. There are like gym bros who play D&D. There are like, you know, nerds like me who play D&D. You know, it's like, it's men, it's women, it's children, it's grandparents. It's like, it's connected with so many different people. But it's almost like this like secret obsession that like people have been having.
What's up, brother? It's your boy, Mike Muse. Welcome to another conversation, the Mike Muse Show. I am super excited to be in conversation with my next guest. It's really interesting that he is my first guest coming back from the Oscars, and really in particular conversation that you all saw me witness about Everything Ever All at Once. He has nothing to do with that, but don't worry, Justice, there is a unique tie-in. His team just like, oh my God, what is he talking about? Where are we going with this? But let's just get right to the audience. The amazing Justice Smith. What's happening, man?
Nothing much. I actually am a really big fan of Everything Everywhere All at Once, so that's how I'm related to that.
Oh, well, there that is too.
Yeah.
Well, since we're here, let's dive into it with a connection to it. I was talking about, in my other job, I do ABC, GMA, and so they were asking me just talk about like what I thought about Everything Ever All at Once and about their win. And a lot of people talked about representation, and it absolutely is, right? Mm-hmm. It's really great for the AAPI community to see themselves on film. But for me, I said the silent representation it's a reflection for every geek, nerd, and STEM major out there. I was a STEM major, Justice. So I did industrial engineering and chemical research for years, and so I geek out on all geeky things. And so for me, I just said it just tells that boy or girl who's studying engineering or playing with blocks or doing gaming, right? Like it is cool. It is cool to be smart. It's cool to be geeky. It's cool to be nerdy, right? And that you are part of pop culture, and you one day may win an Oscar, right?
Yeah, that's a beautiful perspective on it. I mean, like I like the family element. I feel like the parental, the mother-daughter dynamic is really universal. I mean, I relate to it. I'm not a daughter, but I am a son, obviously, as we all are. Yeah. And I cried a lot, through that storyline. I saw it 4 times, and I cried every single time.
Oh, so you saw it 4? I saw it 2 times. And I believe that it gets better every time. Is that how you looked at it? I keep hearing people see it multiple times. They say they find something unique about it every time.
Yeah, I cried at a different part every single time because I think it has there's so many nuances to it. It's what I especially love about it is it's a maximalist film that is highbrow.
Yes.
I find that specifically in our industry, to have class, you have to be minimal. And I don't know where that association came from. Yeah. But I think that Everything Everywhere All at Once really brings back the sophistication of the blockbuster.
I love that you're saying that. Well, then would you say the same thing about Top Gun then, since we're here?
I haven't seen that.
Oh, you haven't? Okay. Top Gun is one of those films that makes me cry randomly as well. And to your maximalist, I love that use of that word. I love when a guest gives me a good word to drop. Practice that in a sentence a few times, though. But there was the linearness about friendship and family, right? That comes in Top Gun, which is everything all at once kind of comes through. And it's really about loyalty and fighting for the ones that you love, right? And fighting for the hope of that. But I think it comes from randomly, this whole minimalist craze came from, like, I think interior design and real estate brokers.
Yeah. That like millennial gray thing that's happening right now where it's like, yeah, everyone's decorating all their houses in neutral colors and stuff and like being as minimalist as possible. I don't know why that's, I don't know. I think it's, people think that they're more spiritually aligned if they're minimalist or whatever, or like it cuts out the noise. I don't really get the trend. I find that if you're centered within yourself, like lots of stuff won't shake you. You know what I mean? Like lots of colors or lots of stimulus won't shake you.
I totally agree with that. It was
yeah.
always so funny when we were doing these interviews during I guess COVID is still here, right? But in the height of the pandemic, I could always tell like a person's personality by their background, right? Some of them were so intentionally placed, right? A lot of them were really going for that minimalist look, like one plant here, one candlestick with no candle in it, right there.
The vintage candlestick, yes.
Right, like
So true.
easy colors. But I will say though, speaking, I think it's all about like how do you shape your energy within your room. Like I do believe in aromatherapy, right?
Yeah.
And so we mentioned
too.
scents earlier when you came in here. So I'm a big believer of lighting candles, doing some saging, and kind of do some energy clearance. But my home has things in it, and it is colorful.
Yes. Same.
Yeah, you got the same thing?
Yes.
too,
No, I very much embrace color in my home. I just bought a house too. And
Congratulations,
thank you.
homeowner, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I'm really it's the decorating part is very difficult, like specifically this might be boring, but you know, choosing I'll pick something like a piece of furniture or a piece of decor, and then I'll find something else that I like, but it kind of competes with the thing that I picked before, so then I'm constantly like getting rid of the things that I had before to like embrace this new aesthetic. And I learned that I had to just let all of it exist, you know, in its competition. Yeah. Because that represents who I am as a person, you know. I am all of these colors. I am all of these patterns clashing, you know.
It's not boring at all. So what you don't recognize is that my audience is very primed for this type of conversation.
Got it.
Because normally, sometimes interior makes me learn a lot about a person. And so once I learn about a constitution of an individual, then I feel like I'll know, I understand the Constitution. Now I know where to take this conversation. And now I know the decision makings that you do, you know, based upon that. So I think that is really interesting. And also, too, if you think about it, a lot of us, right, are either first-time homeowners or during the pandemic, we started going through, like, I got to do something different with my space, right? Yeah. And then I think the joke for me has always been, like, you buy, let's say, like, a gold light fixture, right? And then you're like, oh, my God, I need a gold coaster, right? Like, I can't have a silver coaster because I have gold coasters, right?
Yes.
And I need a gold candlestick? Or do I not need a gold candlestick?
Yeah.
Should I do, like, wood to offset the gold? And then you just go down this rabbit hole. And then
I have gold
Pinterest.
finishings, so I totally relate to this, because when I find silver things, I'm like, if I get this, then I have to, like, I can embrace it, but then I'd have to embrace it throughout the space. It'd have to be like gold and silver everywhere instead of just like, because if I just have one silver thing and everything else is gold, it's just not gonna make sense. Yeah, I totally relate to this. I
think that's everybody's, either when you're in your apartment, you're owning your home. Once you start really, I think it's time of maturity too as well, right? So now I like home, like makeover shows. Like I'm on the adult side of Instagram now, going down a rabbit hole of Pinterest. I even found Justice. Oh my God, audience, we're gonna move on. But I also too found I call her the Christmas lady. She's on Instagram and she just decorates these extravagant Christmas trees, and like she does like these hot cocoa stations in front of people's homes. And I'm like, I want her in my life. So like, things I didn't see in my bingo card when I got older was a Christmas lady who's gonna come and like Christmas behind my home.
Yeah. So
that's where I'm at in my life right now.
Yeah,
before we get into Dungeons and Dragons, which you are really here for, man, you rocked Sharper.
Oh, thank you so
much. Like,
much.
you rocked Sharper. That's what made me feel like we were friends. Although I never met this man a day in my life. This is my first time meeting him. Like, I was like, oh my God, someone who loves books, someone who owns like a bookstore. Like, I really thought it was real. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, Mike, this is a movie. Like, and you shot in my old neighborhood.
No way.
I live a little bit further west now, but yeah, you shot in my old neighborhood. And so it brought back so many great memories. I was like, I remember that corner store. I remember this. And there was no bookstore there, so I'm really glad you guys put that there, man.
Yeah, that was our production design team was incredible. They built that bookstore. I mean, obviously it was an empty space that they rented out, but they like just filled it with all these different books, and even like the shelving they created, and like the whole thing was just like impeccable. I wish I could say that I'm a lot like him and I'm an avid reader, but I'm not really. I'm not. I mean,
Don't let me down.
Don't
let me down, Justice.
I'm trying
they
not
say
to.
Never meet your heroes. They say never meet your heroes.
I do read, and I used to read more, but recently I haven't been reading too much. I I've really been investing in my inner child and playing a lot of video games.
And gamer.
Yes.
We just had Jordan Fisher on, who's a big kind of gamer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in this space. Well, talk to me about your roles, because you, again, I had this whole caricature of you in my head, right? I was like, oh, he loves to read, and he loves sci-fi, right? You're like, no, Mike, actually just like sitting at home and decorating. But you've done roles like, Jurassic World and Pokemon, and now you have this epic Dungeons and Dragons, which is such an iconic intellectual property for so many different kind of reasons. Like, what gravitates you towards these type of roles and characters in films and storylines?
I was just talking to Reggae about this the other day. Like, a lot of people think that actors have more choice than they actually do. Like, I'm very grateful to be a part of all of these things, but it's not like I'm seeking them out, or it's like, if anything, I'm like, oh, thank God they picked me,
Yeah.
Like, and I'm really waiting for the cosmic reasoning why I've done like so many blockbusters, or I've done so many movies geared towards like games, like, because I've done a couple now. But I really had a moment with myself, because I saw my career going differently when I was first starting out. Like, I really thought I was going to be like waiting tables and doing meaningful indies. And I've gotten to do some meaningful indies, but I really, early on in my career, I was shot into this like blockbuster space. And I had an attitude about it a little bit. Like, I judged myself and my career because I felt like I wasn't doing, it's similar to the minimalist infection. Like, yes,
connecting the dots.
Exactly. Like, I was like, oh, because the film doesn't have breadth, or it doesn't have, it's not character driven or dialogue driven. Like, it's not classy, or it's not, like highbrow. And I really had to sit with myself and be like, that's not fair. Like, these films connect with so many people. My family like my father specifically only watches like films like this, like these kind of big blockbuster, colorful, maximalist films. Yeah. And it was an eye opener for me to like be like, I cannot judge like the media that people relate to, especially if it brings them joy and it makes them happy, and that's the whole goal of all of this, is like to entertain. It's entertainment at the end of the day. And it kind of led me to my opinion of Everything Everywhere All at Once, like the balance of like maximalism with meaning. And I find that Dungeons is in that same space. Like, it's such a good film. It's so well done. I'm about to watch it for a third time tonight. And I'm not consistently proud of my work, but I'm extremely proud of this because it's hilarious, it's action-packed, but it also is sincere.
Yeah.
It knows when to take itself seriously, but not too seriously, and it doesn't make fun of itself. Like, it honors the fans, but it also like shepherds the like people who've never played D&D before into the story. And yeah, I'm grateful. I'm really grateful to be a part of it.
You gave me a lot of goodness
now
in that statement. And I didn't want to interrupt you because I love the way you were flowing, but I was smiling because you affirmed what I said about when I look at a person's like interior, it allows me to understand their constitution, right? Mm. And so just hearing you talking in reference about the clashing of items in your home, you're like, let it just sit and let it be okay. It's almost this evolved thinking when it comes to film and art, that it's okay to be, right? And that you can be linear and maximalist, form, and you can find your space, right? And
100%.
So sometimes what we're doing on the outside is really just an reflection of what we're dealing with internally, and as we're evolving and as we're growing, and particularly in that space, I get really on people about people trying to qualify art. Like, what is art, right? And I tell people all the time, like, there is no art committee, and I don't want there to be art committees or who determines what is a good film, what is a bad film. What may be a good film for you may be a bad film for me. Exactly. And that's okay, but that audience was for you, it wasn't for me. And there may be things that I absolutely love and I will cry on Top Gun again, right? And when you watch it, you're like, I hated this, right? But it's okay because it wasn't made for you then, right?
Yes.
I think like art always finds a home, right?
Yes.
And art always finds a place. But you also too landed me somewhere really interesting with Dungeons and Dragons, because I just want to unpack that a little bit, because we did talk about starting off celebrating the geek, the nerd, those that have been sci-fi. And for me, when I was witnessing Dungeons and Dragons growing up, it was always the others, right? It was always those who sat, at the lunch cafeteria in the corner with just the four of them, right? In dark clothing. My good friend Stacey Reynolds, who I love today, was my neighbor, right? She crossed the street, but this was more of her vibe, right? She was into puzzles. She was into Dungeons and Dragons, and they would take trips, right, growing up so that Stacey could play, and role play with Dungeons and Dragons. And so when I hear the term Dungeons and Dragons, I never felt that it was for me, right? So like, what do you say to people like me, right, who never thought Dungeons and Dragons was for them, right, about the world that Dungeons and Dragons is now that you guys have created?
Well, specifically with the movie, like it's
the movie, yeah.
The movie is, well, I want to touch on two things here. Like the movie, you don't have to know anything about it. You don't have to have prior knowledge or like prior interest, really, because the minute you watch it, like the writer directors John and Jonathan, they do such a good job of kind of making things digestible enough where you can just relate to the characters and like go on this ride, and humor is a universal language. So there's definitely a lot of humor in it. But what I want to say about the game is that I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. I knew about the game, but I didn't know how to play. I didn't know anyone who did play. And so while I was interested in like trying it out, every time I would breach the surface, I was kind of overwhelmed by how much you have to commit to like building your character and like, in addition to like actually reaching out to people to like play with you. And the first time I got to play was with the cast before we shot the film. And it is so similar to what I do for a living, like to being an actor playing this game. You create a character, you research about what that character's race and class is, where they're from geographically in this like in the fictional world of Faerun. And you like all collectively commit to improvising a story, and it's really just about like it's the purest form of storytelling. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry that you didn't get the experience to play it as when you were a kid, but like that's like I hope that anyone who hasn't played it finds their little community, because there's something so magical about all of us like collectively agreeing to like suspend our disbelief and just go on this ride together. It's similar to like audiences in a movie theater, It's like we all like collectively agree to just believe what we're witnessing is true for like an hour and a half. I don't know what that unity, that's just such goodness, that unity between people and like how stories bring us together.
You just checked me in a really wonderful way, and I say that positively. I always am the one saying, try it, right? Don't knock it till you try it, right? Open up your horizons, right? You will absolutely enjoy it. And when you just said that moment, one, I'm just a film guy in general, so I see all films, right? And so, but I love how you separate the film from the game, and I think it's important for audiences to understand the separation from the film and from the game. But there's something when you just leaned in, you said, "I'm sorry you didn't get a chance to play that," and that kind of hit me. I was just like, "Damn, Mike." You should have maybe played with Stacey on that one, right? Like, imagine the fun you would have had. And it's always a reminder, even for people like me who are promoting everyone to step outside their comfort zone, that there still is a moment I haven't stepped outside my comfort zone to try. And I immediately started thinking about, I don't know, have you ever played a murder mystery game before in real life?
I would love to. I do a lot of escape rooms, which is similar in terms of like figuring out what's going on.
The reason why I asked that is because my friend Lauren, dear friend of mine here in Brooklyn, is in Miami now. she used to create these incredible murder mystery dinner game nights at her crib
That's
in Brooklyn,
dope.
right? And we had to get dressed up in costume, and a part of me thought it was like super cheesy, and I had like heard about this. But when I tell you, I used to have the time of my life when she did that. It was about really dressing up, getting in costume, creating your character, playing out the character, and then similar to Dungeons and Dragons, like the game is evolving as you go, right? And so I'm just like, damn, I should have done that. I should have played. So Justin, if you play again, let me know. I want to do that with you.
Okay.
Invite me with your tribe and crew.
I will. But there's a real vulnerability to it. And I think that's what scares a lot of people, you know. It's specifically because D&D, I think, has gotten kind of like a rap of being like nerdy or geeky, like you said before. And so, but I think it's nerdy / geeky because these people like are like willing to be vulnerable and like in pursuit of fun, you know. And I feel like that's rare today. But what's also crazy is doing this movie, I've learned how diverse this demographic is. There are people who play D&D who are like in their 60s. There are people who play D&D who are 12. There are like gym bros who play D&D. There are like, you know, nerds like me who play D&D. You know, it's like, it's men, it's women, it's children, it's grandparents. It's like it's connected with so many different people, but it's almost like this like secret obsession that like people have been having. And it's beautiful to see like people come out of the what's the expression, woodwork. And like share with me like, oh, I love that, I play it like every Friday with my friends and stuff. I'm like, I had no idea.
But also too, I think I talk about this often too. Well, this is the power of film, right? The power of a film can shed light, give cover, offer awakenings, you know, bring awareness, and invite people in, right? And so if you see this now, I think society and culture as a whole are now interested in big budget, big blockbuster film, with lots of action, anime, comic book, character, cosplay things. And so as that world is getting bigger and more popularized, right, for me, I hope that individuals who do cosplay in real life and do these type of games can, one, see themselves in it, and to say, yo, I'm normal. Like, what I do is worth $100 billion, right? And then as more people go to see it just casually on a Friday night or, you know, date night or hanging out with their fellas or their homies or their homegirls, that then when they look at people who are doing Dungeons and Dragons in real life, they will say, yo, that's what's up. That's dope.
Yes, exactly.
How do you do it? Tell me more about it. Where do you guys go? And I think it will build community, right? And it'll build exchange, because oftentimes we critique things that we just don't know, right? I shouldn't even say critique. That's the wrong choice. Criticize. Things that we just don't know or that unfamiliar to us. So because we don't know it's unfamiliar, then we think it's automatically strange. Because then it's strange, then I'm going to knock you for being strange. Although I never played it, it's probably the most dopest thing in the whole wide world, right? And so I think film can moderate discourse in so many different ways, because even just when you think about Comic-Con, I remember growing up, and I guess I'm being very vulnerable, my own biases, right? But like, you know, before Comic-Con became a wave, right? And really before I went for the first time, I was like, why are adults getting dressed up in costume? Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. And this was before like we jumped the shark on like comic book and superhero movies, right? And I went to Comic-Con here in New York, not in San Diego, and I saw this world and I was like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And one day I want to be in costume, right? And it was really good just to see all the people finding their community, right? And I'm a big believer in people finding community. But then we just seen the growth and evolution of the comic books and the superhero movies, man. And so
it's like finding your community so that you can actually like start enjoying your life, like in these like silly ways. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
We were just at South by premiering the movie, and we had audience questions, and this one girl was asking about like how like. I forget exactly her wording, but she was a LARPer. Do you know what a LARPer is?
I don't.
A live action role player.
Dope.
So these are people who like get in costumes and like go into the woods and like with like foam swords and pretend fire, or like have pretend stores or whatever. Like, and it often takes place in like medieval times or whatever. It's very similar to Dungeons and Dragons. But she was talking about something about like how do we get it to seem more like cool to people, like so like people could join and like be in on the fun. And in my head, I was just like, it's so bizarre that like specifically adults have disconnected themselves from their sense of place so much that they like are like they're deemed as like immature or uncool if they like enjoy their life, if they enjoy having fun, when my career is just I am just a glorified LARPer. Like what I do for a living is get into costumes and put on silly voices and like pretend to be people that I'm not, you know? So but that, like being an actor, being a celebrity is somehow seen as cool, but then like doing it like just for the fun of it is not cool. Like I don't, it's hard for me to track like where the line is and like, but I don't know. It is what, like you said, like I feel like this movie will bring people together and allow them to embrace their inner child and allow them to embrace their imagination.
But it's what society and it's really what the lunchroom has really taught us, right? Like, like really when you think about it, right? You have the cool kids in here, the jocks and the cheerleaders over here, the band geeks over here, which I was a band geek too as well, right? And then you had like the nerds, and then you had, I would say other, like goth, D&Ders, like LARPers, like over there. And so we kind of created all this disconnect in the lunchroom. And so I think growing up, we've always saw ourselves as division, like personality divisions, right? And what you subscribe to. I was one of the ones that was able to associate that with everyone, right? So I never sat with every table every week, right?
You're a group hopper.
Exactly.
I was a group hopper.
Yeah, I group hop. And I think when you think about it though, Justice, and I know we're gonna land the plane. I know I can't keep you all day. This has been so much fun to me. But if you really think about it, at the end of the day, like the geek and the nerds are now the billionaires that everyone wants to be, right? If it wasn't for these geeks and nerds who are sitting in the corner at the lunch table by themselves, the jocks and the cheerleaders wouldn't be beauty influencers or fitness experts, right? If these platforms did not get created. And if those who are other, right, audience, you will love how I'm just pointing randomly different spaces in the studio as if I'm really visualizing.
I'm tracking it.
You're tracking it. Or other, we wouldn't be able to see these great films that we're seeing right now, like Dungeons and Dragons, like Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? Like these immersive, imaginary worlds. It was those who were drawing in the corner, like by themselves, right? And so I think now we're starting to unlock that and unpack that with this conversation today, Justice.
Yeah, I love that.
But you and I are going to save the world. Give us our Nobel Peace Prize immediately.
Yes.
Don't you agree?
Yes, why not? Well, I mean, I don't want to give us that much credit. Like,
I am. We literally just solved the world, Justice. I'm going to say it. You're very humble. Stay humble. Right? But like, you and I just solved the world, and this is how we stop bullying. Right?
Yes,
like,
exactly.
We just did this. Play it back, everyone.
But I think what you're saying though is that like there is a place for everybody, and there's a place for whatever your penchant is. And I think that where we become divided is when we start to judge another person's place because we personally wouldn't go there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That's where the issue comes. So I think it's like, if you don't want to LARP, if you don't want to draw in the corner, if you don't want to play D&D, that's all well and good. Play sports, or play with makeup, or do whatever you want to do, or whatever. Like, but it's, don't judge other people for what lights them up.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that is a platitude, but
no, it's a real platitude though.
But I feel like it's
real.
It's that's the root of what we're saying is.
Never lose that inner playfulness of your child,
exactly,
your childhood. And we're going to end with the story of my boy Carter. My boy. He is my homie. My nephew is like 8 years old. My homie, Carter. It gives me such joy. He loves watching these YouTube, I don't even know what they call, but I call them like kung fu movie like videos that's meet with music. And so he really is out there in the living room like doing like these kung fu martial arts, but like in dance form. It's almost like that Brazilian dance.
Capoeira.
Capoeira, yeah. It looks similar to capoeira.
Yeah.
And I just smile when I see him doing that. And I'm just like, the innocence of it all and the playfulness, and he's having a ball, and he gets right into it, and it just lights me up. And remember to keep on playing.
Yes,
right?
Exactly that.
Justice Smith, man, you did not disappoint. They say don't meet your heroes, so I'm glad I did, man. We just got to, two things we got to do, Justice. We got to play Dungeons and Dragons together.
Correct.
And we got to go to a small vintage mom and pop bookstore. right? And just
Yes.
like peruse first copies.
I thought you were gonna say a vintage store to get vintage candlestick.
We can do that
holders.
too. So that's three things, right? But there's three things,
Got
right?
it.
But I just imagine the bookstore one day discussing books and first run editions of the
Yes.
greats, right?
Let's do it.
Like in your movie Sharper. Ladies and gentlemen, Dungeons and Dragons premieres March 31st. Please make sure you go check it out. Take your kids, take your friends, everyone have fun, and don't forget your inner youth. Justice Smith, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.